Go ahead.
We're live.
Are we good?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd like to call to order the March 9th, 2021 regularly scheduled meeting of the Johnson City Regional Planning Commission. And pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order 78, this meeting is being conducted electronically. I'd like to begin our meeting with the invocation and pledge of allegiance to the flag. Vice Chairman Cooper, would you please lead us?
Yes, ma'am. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to serve our community. Help all of the participants to bring wisdom, consideration, and fair play to our deliberations. And bless all of us as we continue to serve our community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chairman Cooper. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So move.
All right. And a second?
Seconded.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Item number 4 is the approval of the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 meeting. Those minutes have been distributed. Were there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes?
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. Again, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion also carries. Under new business, the first item, 5.1, is control strip access to consider granting approval to cross a recorded control strip at Eddie Williams Road. And I will turn it over to staff for presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Wild, Vice Chair Cooper, commissioners. This is telling me host disabled participant screen sharing.
Sorry, hang on a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And just one other thing here, Wendy or JT,
Go to
I'm
display.
crossed up here. I'm trying to share screen 2.
Go to display settings.
Oh, okay. It's over on, there it is. We're looking on the wrong. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. First item of business here is to the applicants requesting permission to cross the city of Johnson City is requesting permission to cross the control strip at Eddie Williams Road. It's been, I think, if memory serves me correctly, I think the last time we had a control strip was the very first planning commission meeting I did several years ago. So just a reminder, I know there's a lot of new people, and I'm sure you all already know what the control strips are, but control strips are 5-foot strips that are placed at the end of subdivisions in public rights of way. Subdivision subregs require those control strips, and subregs require planning commission approval for applicants when they wish to tie into public right of way at on those stubs, and they have to get permission to cross the control strip from the regional planning commission. All right, Eddie Williams Road ties into Fairview. This is the end of Eddie Williams Road. You can see the control strip here that I've labeled in red. This large piece of property here, the Water and Sewer Department is building a new complex. It's not a treatment plant. It's an office. They're going to have offices there, vehicles, vehicular storage, material storage, those sorts of things. And they need permission to cross the control strip to tie into the new development. And this simply over here is just is the old plat that shows that there indeed is a 5-foot reserve strip here at the end of Eddie Williams Road. The property is properly zoned. It's industrial I2, heavy industry. So the use is the type of proposed development is permitted here. Here's over on the right side of the screen. This is the proposed development. You can see it's a campus style development. We're not reviewing. This isn't a concept plan that's being approved tonight by the Planning Commission. All the site plan review and the construction plans will all be done by staff. This is just simply coming and requesting permission for the city to cross the control strip. And these two stellar pieces of photography here that I've taken are just pictures. This is looking across the control strips right around in here, looking in towards where the proposed development will be. And then this is looking at it the opposite way down Eddie Williams Road. Staff recommends approval of permission for the city of Johnson City to cross the control strip.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ryder. Are there any questions of staff at this time?
No.
All right, then this is something we do need to open a public hearing for, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, JT, if you could put up the signage to open the public hearing in case anybody would like to call in or participate in that capacity, please do so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. And is there anybody on the line or in the meeting currently that was going to speak on this item, JT?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then why don't we keep this open for a few minutes? I know there's a few minute delay in broadcast and what we're doing live, and we'll begin any discussion or deliberation amongst commissioners while it's open. Just please let me know if somebody calls in. Will, can you remind me, what is the function of a control strip really?
The purpose of the control strip really is to ensure that there's some sort of control of what type of vehicular traffic you have that can cross the control strip that will be tying into the public right away, that the proposed development's going to be of an appropriate nature. Really, it probably becomes more critical in residential areas where you have, for example, a few years ago, we had the one at the end of Windtree where the gentleman wanted to, he was just building a house he needed to access and he was building a driveway. And it was actually tying into county property. If the purpose, they have to write us, we request that they write a letter telling us what their proposed use is, even though we're not reviewing the construction plans or the site plan necessarily, telling us what the purpose is for why they want to cross it. And that way, like in particular, like on the Windtree one, if the individual was trying to have some sort of logging operation or something along those lines where there'd be a lot of industrial type or construction traffic going through the neighborhood, then there's an ability to control that. It's really about controlling the type of vehicular access at the end and making sure that it's appropriate for the proposed development. In
So
this case, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so in this case, we have industrial before and then the development is also industrial, so we'd expect similar types of traffic on both areas, and that's why it's appropriate.
That's correct. And it's already zoned industrial, and it's really not an industrial use that necessarily that's going in. There'll be a lot of, a lot of city vehicles that'll be coming and going, and people reporting to work and those sorts of things. So it's quite in line with the industrial nature of traffic that's already out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Will, as I understand it, it also provides for the original developer, it requires him to provide access to adjacent property that might not have access otherwise.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, JT, has anybody called in on the public hearing?
No, ma'am, they have not.
All right, then let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there any additional discussion amongst commissioners or questions for staff? If not, then I am looking for a motion on this item, please.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Mays, a second by Commissioner Cooper for approval of the control strip access at Eddie Williams Road. Is there any additional discussion? All right, hearing none, Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Dagenhart. Oh, Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mays,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Jamie, you're muted.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Wild.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the second item of new business then, item 5.2 on the agenda. This is also a control strip access, and this is to consider granting approval to cross a recorded control strip at Chase Drive. Will, you're on.
All right, these things come in batches, it seems like, around here. You get requests for de-annexations all at one time and annexations, and you don't see them for a few years, and not had a control strip in a few years, and now here we are with two of them. This is for permission to cross the control strip at the end of Chase Drive. Chase Drive, there we go. Chase Drive ties into Hanover Road. This is over by the stock pod. It's in the vicinity of Sam's. And here's the property. Here's the property in question. Here's the control strip at the end of Chase Drive. Again, here's the subdivision plat that indicates these two little asterisks here indicate that there is indeed a control strip on the property at the end of the stub. Want to put these two side by side just to show that the proposed use is going to be an office complex, likely will be a medical office complex, regardless of whatever. None of the spaces have been leased in this property yet. Of course, construction hasn't been conducted yet. They need permission to cross the control strip, but offices, this is appropriate zoning. As you can see over here, this property is already zoned B4. So the vehicular traffic should be appropriate for the proposed use. We are requesting that the development, he has labeled it as such on this. He is going to build a street to public street standards to tie into the control strip. You can see there's a cul-de-sac here, but he's also granted an easement that in case there is going to be any future development to any of these other regions of the property in the future, that developer would have the right to be able to tie into to this cul-de-sac. But all of this will be built to public street standards. Again, we're not reviewing the site plan, but the proposal is, he threw up a lot of parking here on the site plan, planning for not the worst case, but the scenario, that wouldn't be the right term, but the maximum number of required parking for offices So again, a medical office of some site, there is an easement for possible future development of the property. Street will be built to public street standards. And staff is recommending approval of this one as well.
All right, thank you, Will. Does anyone have any questions of staff on this item? All right, if not, JT, would you please also open the public hearing on this one for us? JT, can you throw up that public hearing slide for us, please?
Does Steve have a comment?
No, I just, I'm the architect on the project. I'm just, if you had any questions, I'm here. So
All right. JT, I'm not sure if you're hearing me. Can you please put up the slide that officially opens the public meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, having some technical difficulty. I'm getting it right now.
Okay, perfect. I just didn't know if maybe you hadn't heard me or not.
I appreciate it.
No problem. All right, well, it's being officially opened. Steve, did you want to add anything else to it, or are you just here if we have any questions?
no, I'm just here if you have questions.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. While JT is working on opening it, in case anybody else wants to call in, or is there any discussion amongst commissioners or any questions of Steve or anybody else?
This doesn't really have to do with this issue in particular. Is this a site plan that will come before us?
It is not. It's
Okay.
already zoned appropriately for the, so no rezoning will be
Gotcha.
required. It'll all be handled by staff.
And then the city, I guess it'll be the cul-de-sac will be the end of the public right of way.
Yes, and then
Okay.
the city code requires somewhere between a 75 and 90-degree angled approach from public right of way into a parking lot. So he's met that with about a 75 or so. That section is of course a private drive, but the rest of it, the cul-de-sac and everything else is public. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Hey, Will, the easement, well, that continues on to the next property, right?
That's correct. Now let me go back here and show one thing here. He is proposing to create a lot here, but the lot will be greater than 5 acres. So it's not really considered a subdivision that can be handled by a meets and bounds survey and deed. So what you're seeing, this line here.
Will, we're not seeing your screen. We're still
Oh.
seeing JT's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, let me try this again.
Go ahead.
Didn't have permission. Okay. Okay. This proposed line here falls approximately here. This is pretty thick back here and fairly steep. It may never be developed, but and then down here you kind of get into some floodway and flood zone issues and this sort of stuff. There are a couple acres here that might be ideal for development. With this easement extending from either side of the street, anything that develops down in here will be able to tie into this. If there is some development back here, they would have the ability to, because of this easement, to extend this road and connect back here. But there is a tributary back here, which would increase construction costs a great deal. So there is also access down here on Oakland Road. So it could be, it may even be more likely that any future development up in this way would access off of Oakland Road. But the possibility is there with the easement and them building that street to this point that you could access that way.
Thanks, Will.
Yes, sir.
All right, JT, has anybody else called in wishing to speak on this?
No, ma'am.
All right. Seeing no one else, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And again, I'm going to open up for either discussion amongst commissioners or a motion on this matter, please.
I move we grant approval for the recorded cross strip crossing
second.
at Chase Drive.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Dagenhart, a second by Commissioner Mays for approval of the control strip access at Chase Drive. Is there any additional discussion? Nicole, please call the roll then.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mays,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich.
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Wild.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Going to move on to item 5.3 under new business, and that is the final plat. We're going to consider approval of a final plat for the right-of-way dedication of Mockingbird Lane.
All right, thank you. As you had in your packets, here's the final plat for Mockingbird Lane. They are dedicating that this is
We're not seeing your screen again.
okay. I apologize.
That's all right.
Okay, here's the plat as you have in your packet. Normally, when we have oftentimes when we have a final plat, there are associated as-builts. Those aren't necessary for this final plat because it is just for the dedication of the public right-of-way. They are dedicating Mockingbird Lane as it existed before construction stopped here at this black line. They are dedicating, this is the part that is under construction. Construction is underway. As part of the agreement, the City of Johnson City Public Works Department is actually building this road and the sidewalk. Construction is being done. It's not complete, as you can see in these pictures. You can see that it's well underway. You can see the sidewalk. You can see a layer of asphalt here. I believe there's another layer or two of asphalt that would have to be included, but or would have to be constructed. But there is no, so since the city is building the street, there is no associated bond with this dedication. There is, as indicated in your packet, there is a punch list from the Water and Sewer Department of things that needed to be sorted out because or addressed because of these easements. One of them, which we can approve this dedication tonight, but it'll still be necessary for the developer to annotate that these easements, these water and sewer easements, he needs to label them as public on the final plat. So we will have that annotated prior to Mr. Dagenhart coming in to sign the final plat if you approve it. So that's really it. It's just the dedication of the right of way, and of course these easements are associated with that. Public Works, the engineers are on this call if you have questions about the completion of the road. And Travis, I believe, is on here from, I don't see his picture, but on the screen, but Travis is here. If you have any questions dealing with the Water and Sewer Department. We're recommending, staff's recommending approval of the final plat road dedication for Mockingbird Lane.
All right, thank you, Will. Are there any questions of Will or any of the other staff at this time?
Hey, Will, with the addition of if there is a motion for approval, does there need to be a condition upon that approval on the, what did you say? The declaration of the water and sewer, what was that?
I would, and
How should that wording go?
Basically, what we're missing is just the fact that the plat does not indicate that easement is dedicated.
I would perhaps suggest something like this, that recommend approval of the road, the final plat of the road dedication for Mockingbird Lane, contingent upon the water and sewer easements being labeled as public on the final plat. Something along those lines, I think would cover it. And Travis, if I have misspoken about anything, please correct me.
No, you're correct. There were some public sewer lines that they installed, and this plat would dedicate those to us within the easement. And just to provide a further clarification that they are public, they need to be labeled as such on the plat.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And those utilities were installed during the recent construction, or were they previously there, Travis?
They were installed during this project.
Okay.
There were some public sewer lines that had to be relocated to allow for the building placements. And then
Right.
there were some additional new public ones and additional water lines as well that were installed.
Okay, thanks, Travis.
And just for information, what's the sense of urgency of approving this tonight instead of waiting until the plat is complete?
Well, I think it's I don't think there's any, as far as the urgency goes, I don't think there's any harm. I mean, we know that Public Works will finish construction of the street. It maybe the dedication should have happened a long time ago for this. Really, it's just, I mean, they are without having, you know, we're not looking at as-built, we're not looking at any of the placement of houses or anything else like that with the concept plan or site plan approval or anything along those lines. Of course, as you know, and as you can see, construction on the units is well underway. In some cases, temporary COs have already been issued to some of the units. Particularly the ones that were already on the existing Mockingbird Lane. So we just felt that it would be a good idea to go ahead and get this approved and have this checked off and
Okay, thank
get this
you.
one knocked out of the way.
And if I could
Hey, Will.
just help a little bit on that, we actually tried to bring this to you all at the last meeting in February, excuse me, but it was even further back than and was not ready to go back in February. We feel that this particular request, where there's a contingency on the approval for the easements, is no different than the contingency that you granted on cottages at Greenwood Phase 1 down off of Greenwood Drive. That's a simple fix that Travis is working out with the developer. But in this particular case, we do need to go ahead and get this right away dedicated because the road is nearing completion. Public Works is trying to wrap that up. Now that we're getting into warmer weather, we're starting to make asphalt again. We do need to go ahead and get this dedicated so that we can help this developer and Public Works get this wrapped up.
All right, thank you. Are there additional questions of staff at this time? If not, JT, if you would please again share the public meeting slide. We'll officially open the public meeting in case anybody wants to call in.
Yes, ma'am, it's live.
Thank you much. And I'll trust you to let me know if anybody does. Well, we can continue discussion amongst commissioners while we give a few minutes for the public hearing. All right, well, hearing no discussion and hearing nobody calling in and wishing to speak in the public hearing, I am going to ask for a motion on this matter, please, and officially close the public meeting.
Move we approve the plat as presented with the qualification that the developer add to the plat labeling that dedicates the utilities to the city.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Cooper, a second by Commissioner Mays for approval of the final plat, the right-of-way dedication on Mockingbird Lane with the contingencies of appropriate labeling on public works issues. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Nicole, you're up.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Chris,
So
you
you-
muted.
is that a yes? Okay. Commissioner Hickson?
We're voting by emoji now.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Mays?
Yes. The crying emoji.
Yeah. Commissioner Pavlich?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Chairwoman Wild?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, our last item of new business is item 5.4. This is a rezoning, and it's to consider a request to rezone 115 Swanee Drive from R3, which is medium density residential, to B4, planned arterial business. And it looks like Whitney's up this time.
You're muted, Whitney. You're muted. You're going to start over.
How did I mute myself already? Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you. It's like the common phrase of 2020 and 21. You're muted. So this is a rezoning that you kind of may not realize needs to be a rezoning. And why now is my screen not moving? Interesting. There we go. Swanee Drive, this would be where right across from the U-Haul place, behind Cootie Brown's on Roan Street. There is a residential area that is behind it and around Swanee Drive, as well as just kind of giving you an idea of what is already here. This has been a parking lot since the 90s, but it has been zoned residential. Those are taken by our resident photographer, Will. But somehow this parking lot, which has operated since the 90s, is still zoned R3. So the property owner would like to bring this property into compliance, and to do so would need a B4 designation. You'll notice from here that, yes, there is a residential area that is on Swanee and Sunrise, Pioneer, but that the kind of northeast side of the road is more business oriented. The planned business, I believe, was rezoned in 1999, even though there hasn't been development on it. That is the zoning for it. I think it's still a vacant lot. So this would be a non-conforming use that is seeking to come into conformity. They provided a site plan just showing where the pictures that I showed show you where the gate is. It will remain at this point. What it is a parking lot. And that's, so kind of going back to where we might look for policy direction, there aren't any policies that conflict in the bridge plan or the strategic plan with this. It's not necessarily something that would be called out in these plans, but it is within what the future land use map calls for commercial. So, and staff recommends approval, and I have gone too far. So, do you have any? It's a kind of a simple thing, but it can get into some deeper questions. Mr. Meredith is on the call, so if you have questions of him, he also can speak to the request.
Whitney, was there a neighborhood meeting held regarding this with residents?
Y'all can't hear me. Can y'all hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
Oh.
Y'all were talking and I have no idea. So
was there a neighborhood meeting that was held regarding this?
There was a neighborhood meeting held on March 1st, and there were no neighbors that came out.
Okay. All right. Are there questions of staff at this time? All right. If not, I'm going to have JT again share the public hearing slide. And I imagine Mitch might want to talk to us while we wait. You're muted, Mitch. Ooh, you're squeaky.
He's not a cat.
Too much helium.
Hey, I just wanted to clarify, was the surrounding property that wasn't residential before as well?
Can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, was the surrounding property that wasn't residential, was that B4 or was that B3?
It's B4 and PB. They're the adjoining property to the south-ish is planned business.
Okay. So what is the difference between B3 and B4? I mean, why?
Intensification.
Hold on.
Well, Jamie, it's not B3, it's R3.
Are you there? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I've
it's
lost
R3.
everybody.
It's going from a residential. It's R3 to B4.
Back seat. Behind you. It's a little square block box like this. They're AirPods.
Jamie, are you talking to us? We can't see what you're doing.
Whitney, what's the advantage of having it go to B4 rather than PB, like the adjacent property?
Because PB does not allow the current use, which is a parking lot.
Thank you.
And you also need to know that should this redevelop, it would come back before the Planning Commission, and it would also have any of the corridor overlay requirements.
And just for clarification on that, because there was a question asked earlier about site plans coming back before the Planning Commission. The only reason why it would come back through for approval by you all is because the way he's identified the concept plan is he's simply identified what exists there today. So anything beyond what exists there today will require an amendment to the concept plan.
Thank you for that clarification, Preston.
Yes, ma'am.
Does Mitch have any comments?
I don't know how the sound's coming across.
You sound good now.
Good. Okay. No, I'm just here if you had any questions. I know that y'all want to move on with your agenda, so unless somebody has something, we're just trying to get it into conformity with the current use.
All right, JT, has anybody called in?
No, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to officially close the public hearing then and open up the table for discussion amongst the commissioners, questions, or for a motion on this matter, please.
Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you, Mitch.
Whitney, while they're in deliberation, will you pull the map back up just for Jamie's benefit? If he might be having some connectivity issues. And so it sounded like what he wanted to see was, there we
See
go.
what this
you got-
is the future. I'm trying to go back and it may not let me. Hold on one second to see if I can exit out of something. I'll be right back with
Sure.
that.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Madam Chairwoman. We just want to have that up there for you.
Let's do that. That's a better diagram of what it is. Can you see it?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
So Jamie, if you can see us still, it's a funny little piece of residential that sticks up in there, kind of like a thumb. And really it was unknown to many. Forgive me, Whitney, as I might repeat, because I stepped out in the hall to talk to Will for a second. But did you by chance mention that had been the staff parking lot for Lowe's when it was?
I did not. I just said it had been a parking lot since the 90s.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was presumed to have the correct zoning. So this is simply a correction.
All right, thank you.
Looks like there's some storage and potentially just different types of parking going on there right now. Is that accurate?
Whitney, maybe go back to your pictures.
Okay. It's like,
Yeah, we like pictures.
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, Commissioner, it's actually vacant currently.
Vacant currently? Okay, thanks.
It has had storage. Some of the aerials show a lot more cars than are out there now. So here's some other pictures.
Okay.
Thank you for
If
correcting.
you'll hit your F5 button, it'll make it full screen.
Thank you. F5. No, mine doesn't do that. That is a different button for me.
Chairwoman, there we go.
Yes, Commissioner Whitfield.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning request from R3 to B4.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Whitfield, a second by Commissioner Hickson for approval to rezone 115 Swanee Drive from R3 to B4. Is there any additional discussion amongst commissioners? All right, Nicole, you're up.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mays,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
and Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Wild.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, we are going to move on to the discussion portion of our agenda then. And the first item is a Planning Commission workshop recap. So I don't want to take long for that, but I do want to thank everybody who was able to attend our retreat last week. I think it was very fruitful discussion. I appreciate the discussion that we had. My goals for that workshop were really to kind of get a read on the commissioners of where everybody stood on some of these proposed ideas, to have some discussion about what it might look like and how we might potentially recreate our subcommittees. And after the workshop and after a lot of reflection, I felt very confident about the read I got from the commission. I think there is a lot of willingness on commissioners' parts to move forward and to potentially make some slight changes. I know I proposed 3 subcommittees during that workshop, and there was some really good discussion about what they might look like and how they might function. And after reflecting on it further, I talked to Preston, I talked to a few of the commissioners, I've talked to the vice chair, and I think it may be better if we potentially move in the direction of creating only 2 subcommittees. So one of those would be what we had discussed, combining our current legislative and land use subcommittee into a single subcommittee. I think we affectionately called that one the Right Committee because it would be headed up by Will probably. And then the second one would take the long range subcommittee that currently exists and kind of add to it the strategy that we had talked about, as well as some of that relationship development, partnership development piece, and add it to the function of that subcommittee. So again, I can't give a clear, concise picture of exactly what these two would look like. What I'd like to do is have us as a commission take 2 one-hour work sessions, and Nicole has sent out invitations for those. Those are scheduled for the first 2 weeks in April during our regular subcommittee meeting schedules. And in one of those sessions, I'd like to address the legislative and land use committee. And in the second one, address the long range strategy partnership development committee. And I'd like us all to kind of work together to iron out what do we foresee the functions of each of these committees being and how might they function. So answering some of the questions that were brought up in our planning retreat. I think this will give an opportunity for everybody to really participate in what the two committees would look like. And so I would like to hold off on making any kind of committee assignments until after we hold those 2 workshops, when everybody's gotten more comfortable with each of them and we can answer any questions regarding them. So that is my proposal. Again, those are scheduled for the first 2 weeks of April. The first one is the Wednesday night subcommittee meeting. It would only be a 1-hour meeting. And then the second one is scheduled before our scheduled planning commission meeting the second week of April. And it would be from 4:30 to 5:30 to give everybody a short break before we go into planning commission. So I'm open for feedback, or does that sound like something that you all think would be fruitful? Does it sound like a waste of time? What are the thoughts?
Will the meetings be virtual, or are they going to be in person at that time?
I'd have to defer to staff. Do we know how long the governor has extended the virtual meeting order?
He's through the end of April. Order 78 puts us through the end of April.
Okay, so these would both still be held virtually.
Yes.
Thank you.
I personally think it's a good step forward, Chairman Wild, and it's certainly going to help me get my arms around where we're headed. But I think both those committees could very well serve us well going forward.
I echo that.
All right. Any other comments or discussion on this topic? All right. And again, I encourage everybody to kind of start thinking about that ahead of time. And if everybody would kind of start assimilating ideas of what do you think these 2 subcommittees would look like. We really want to kind of tackle what is going to be the role or function of each, and maybe what are going to be the metrics for each of these subcommittees. How are they going to measure, and potentially even get into suggestions of, okay, what could be some of the first few items that each of these subcommittees might want to start addressing. I think that would all be beneficial. Jamie, are you trying to talk to us?
Jamie's bound to be into the margaritas by now.
I know, he was highlighted like he was saying something, but we can't see him and we can't hear him. Were you saying anything, Jamie?
I tell you, on this phone, the mute says unmute. don't know. It says mute or unmute. I don't know where I'm at.
Just have a margarita for us, Jamie.
Can you hear me now?
We
anyone
can hear
me
you.
at this point? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little bit ahead of you.
Are you still talking?
No, I'm not talking. I don't.
Okay.
He's just flexing with those palm trees back there in the background.
All right. All right, we're going to move on to the second item of discussion then. And this was a request for staff to give the Planning Commission an update on the West Walnut Street project. And I'm going to mute because my dog's barking now.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. Phil Penzola shot out an email. Let me see here. I'm trying to make everything hush here. Director of Public Works shot out an email just the other day, as a matter of fact. He indicated that we will be advertising the project for bids this weekend. So it looks like we'll be doing bid work during the spring. Expect commission approval of the low bid at their May meeting, one of the May meetings. Contract should be fully executed by the 1st of June, and notice to proceed shortly thereafter. So we expect construction to begin early to mid-June. Construction will take 2 years or until roughly June 30 of 2023. The way that Public Works is going to schedule this thing is that there will be disruption block by block to minimize overall disruption. Existing road will be completely removed and replaced by the new design, including upgrades to water and sewer lines and storm drains. Intersection at University Parkway will be converted into a right in and right out configuration. And a new road will be constructed at Cherokee Road down to State of Franklin. And a new signal will be added at Pine and University Parkway. So those are the final details. And if you want me to, I realize I just did that verbally, but if you'd like for me to throw up a map and point out what I've just said, I'm happy to do it. But looks like that the plan is moving forward as I believe everyone has last seen it or is expected. No major changes, and it looks like we're expected to begin construction midsummer.
Preston, is
I
that going
could-
out in a single bid for everything? Or is that multiple bids for different parts of the construction?
That's entirely up to Public Works as to how all that works out.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Benjamin.
That's okay. Preston, I tell you to pull up the map and show us again and view that beautiful narrative again.
Sure. Let's see
While,
here.
while you're doing that, Preston, is the map available on the city site?
We will, I believe that the plans themselves are available, but I can verify with our marketing and communications folks.
So apparently that means that the Harbin property has been acquired.
I would need to rely on Phil for that level of detail.
Well, if the scope includes extending Cherokee.
Yes. I mean, I can, it's just that Preston Mitchell can't confirm that here on the call today. Yeah.
Preston, I think we're in the process of working on getting a harmonized property, but we're with Carl McIntyre, our title attorney. He's looking into some things with it.
That's great news.
Gotcha. Thank you, Lawrence.
Sure.
And Preston, I don't know if you can answer this one either, but have all the property owners who are going to be affected, have they all been notified on Walnut Street?
I'd have to rely on Phil and Lawrence for that one, but based on the work schedule that this thing's going to be block by block, you know, of course, there's been the public engagement piece that's gone into this whole thing. And then the most recent public engagement pieces that have been involved with the final plans, and then the most recent plan changes. Most likely, Phil will be working directly with our marketing and communications folks to do a robust public notification through all kinds of sources and different media as we do it block by block.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can say that comfortably that marketing and comms they've been working closely with Phil on all this. We knew that this was, you know, as any major road reconstruction project would be, it's going to be very sensitive because you're dealing with a bunch of existing businesses and existing residences. So yes.
Yeah, correct.
So allow me to, oh, here we go. I finally got it to work. All right, I got to make sure my screen is small enough or that it'll work. Let's do this. Okay, can everybody see my map?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Trying to scoot it down where you can see as much as possible, but didn't want to lose Pine Street. Pine Street's down, the intersection of Pine and University is down here in the very bottom left-hand corner. I can zoom in where you need me to zoom in, that kind of thing. But let's go back to his email. He indicates that that disruption will be block by block. And so Lawrence, you may be able to indicate whether or not he's planning on going east to west or west to east. I don't know that detail. But University Parkway will be one of the termini. And so it will run in a block fashion. So for example, I'll zoom in here. From University to Cherokee, that would be considered one block. And then here's where Cherokee will cross through down to State of Franklin, right across from the baseball field. And then the next block would be going up to Boyd Street. I presume that the next block will be all the way up to Southwest, that it won't be just a short little jog from Boyd to Watauga. And then
Hey, Preston, not to stop you, but will Cherokee be a light on State of Franklin?
I think so, Clay, as I understand it.
I thought so. Well, just trying to confirm that.
Yeah, I thought so, but I can't. I would need to verify before I make a definitive statement.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to do that. And then, as noted, the road's going to be completely removed, replaced with the new design. But before the new design goes down, in other words, all the surface stuff, all your subsurface work, water and sewer and storm, all that's going to be improved. And then touching on the other items as it related to University Parkway, he does indicate that intersection at University Parkway right here at West Walnut will be right in and right out. So if you're traveling northbound or down the hill on University, you'll be able to make a right in. Or if you're traveling northbound towards State of Franklin, you'll be able to make a right out, but no lefts. And then I've already mentioned the new road at Cherokee right here. And then I'm gonna scroll over here to Pine Street. And at Pine is where there will be a new signal added right here.
Preston, was there any additional discussion about pedestrian crosswalk at Walnut and University? I know there was some initially, and I remember going to the presentation when Phil presented this at a public meeting. But what was the final decision regarding pedestrian walkway in that area?
I'll be glad to pull up the plan while we're talking about a couple of other items. I can pull that up in the background. But I believe that that it did not change from, in terms of, the changes that were made were regarding the light at Pine Street. But overall, I do not believe that the pedestrian connection changed there at West Walnut. What I mean by that, forgive me, is I believe that there is a pedestrian refuge, but I will pull that up and I'll double check.
What's a refuge?
A refuge is a spot in the middle of the road where the pedestrian can, so the pedestrian is not having to run direct all the way across the street.
So like a suicide lane for pedestrians.
Right.
Okay.
But typically it is a protected space. Yeah, it's an island. It's physically protected or protected with landscaping. But I can do my best to pull the plan, or while we're sitting here talking, if Lawrence is able to be pulling that up and see if he can confirm what the pedestrian amenity is. It a refuge crossing over University at West Walnut? That would be fantastic.
And while you're looking that up, Nicole or Preston, can you tell me, does the bike lane go from University, Walnut Street, does it cross University at Walnut, or does it move up to Maple?
Does the bike lane off of Walnut?
Yeah, I thought there were preliminary discussions last year that the bike lane was going to shoot across. We're not going to go directly across Walnut Street. They were going to try to reroute it and have it cross University at Maple Street.
Maple or Pine?
Yeah, I'll have to check on that level of detail.
Okay.
I do believe that, well, the cross section of West Walnut includes the dedicated bike lane for the whole length of it. But where it was proposing to cross University, I just need to verify that.
I think there was some concerns that students would just keep biking and trucking across Walnut Street, not want to go up one block to cross it, and there'd be some accidents there. That's what I was asking.
Gotcha. Lawrence, if you're still on and if you're in your office, can you verify the bike connection as well as the type of pedestrian connection across University? Please, sir.
Yeah, we've got the plans pulled up. Go up to University.
And if you're still looking, we can come back to you.
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah. Let me come back to you. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Madam Chair.
All right. Are there additional questions or updates regarding this item? All right, then I guess we'll just move on to the next, and once Lawrence pulls that up, we can come back and see what he's found. So the next discussion item was staff was going to begin discussion of a possible rezoning of the tree streets.
So before I dive into this, just kind of like running across an open field, allow me to ask Dr. Whitfield specifically maybe what was behind the question? Where do you want to go on this topic? Give me a path as opposed to just running blind through the wheat.
Preston, you don't enjoy running blindly through minefields?
Well, no, but I really enjoyed it when the paper asked me about this question.
Oh, did they really?
I got a call from the paper on this one yesterday as well.
Whoa. So I've been asked by several residents around here regarding rezoning the tree streets. It's been a kind of a hot button issue here, I think, for about a year or two.
Sure.
I think a lot of it, because a lot of it, we're not really in code for R2 right now. A lot of the homes are not.
Right.
Matt Manley discussed this quite a bit as well. He never made any promises that we were going to address this, but he's kind of like, it was always on the horizon. And since COVID has happened, I know there's been a much more, there's been a push that I've felt palpably in the neighborhood for people to start doing infill development, start increasing the density. And people were also requesting to start having some ADUs. 1, to increase density, 2, for people to bring in elderly parents, and 3, for some people, for these large yards to have a kind of a side income. All these things that are historically been allowed here are not currently allowed in R2. And people, their minds are boggled by that. And I try to appease them as best I can. But there's been a lot of push for it. I think there's appetite for it. I think it's something that can be done politically now. I think there would be the will for it. And so that's why I was asking if it's something we could start discussing.
Sure. No, okay. I really appreciate your explanation there, because it's right in line with what I was thinking you were asking. And you are correct. Matt and I started having those conversations really right after I arrived in late 2018, early 2019. We started talking about our zoning code and where our zoning code either successfully or fails to address the differences between urban and suburban characteristics, development characteristics, specifically residential, and the very real differences in those two development types, and the need and the appropriateness to have 2 different types of zoning districts, residential zoning districts, that identify those community and neighborhood building characteristics that really help identify and make those places great places. And so the current R2 district, although it does a good job in really slowing and repealing growth, well, not repealing, kind of retarding growth. It just simply, as you stated, does not do a good job of addressing urban development patterns or urban development needs or desires. The other is that anytime you try to make a text change in the R2, you're going to apply it to all of the R2 across the entire city. So you might be working on some policy initiative that is going to apply to the more suburban neighborhoods out off of Knob Creek or off of Carroll Creek. And that's great if that's the area that you're really trying to address. But by making those text amendments apply to that district, you're automatically applying it to these more urbanized areas. And so there can be a mismatch. And then the same thing, if you try to do the same thing, try to write text into the R2, really trying to apply it to the tree streets, the folks out in those more suburban areas may feel differently about ADUs or about short-term rentals or things like that. So again, going back to some of the early conversations he and I had about form-based coding and some of the needs to really modernize our code, we actually have a really well-written code. There's a lot of good policy in our code, but this is something that we do need to do. However, I'm down still 2 planners, and Mr. Ryder has stepped into the development coordinator role, done a beautiful job, but he is covered up as was expected. And so I've still got these 2 planner positions open, both Ms. Hodges and Ms. Duggan. Ms. Duggan on the preservation side and Ms. Hodges helping us on the current planning side have been wonderful. But before we can really jump into a major policy initiative, I need to at least get one of those planner positions filled back here in the office. For example, Kelly Duggan, the other planning consultant, she's really focused, as you all know, very heavily on the bridge plan, so on long range and strategic planning, but she's also really picked up where Matt was running with the historic preservation, with the Historic Zoning Commission. She's done a fantastic job with managing and running COAs, and that's really easy to do based on the number of districts that we have in town and the number of COAs. That can be handled by one person, in addition to her work that she was doing on the bridge plan. Now that the bridge plan is wrapped up, her next kind of major project that she's jumped from out of the bridge plan project into the next project is the rewrite of the Tree Streets guidelines. And so she has just kicked that off with the Historic Zoning Commission. So for her to be able to take that and run with it, that's fantastic. I would love to be able to give Ms. Hodges a large policy project like this, but I need to have another planner on staff to help with the casework. And so it's the casework that really kind of keeps us spinning. So we got to do that. But as soon as I can get another planner on board, absolutely, that's something that we really need to begin working on, because as you noted, that ties into so many other things. Really recognizing and identifying our urban neighborhoods for what they are, and then beginning to have policy conversations about what we want to have in those urban neighborhoods and what the development standards need to be, everything down to the setbacks, to overall height, to the percentage of coverage on a lot, down to accessory structures and ADUs and short-term rentals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah,
absolutely.
It also dovetails nicely. And, when I was reading through the bridge plan, like even the bridge plan was, requesting or saying this would be a priority. And then, dovetailing even further, and with Walnut Street being developed, I think there's going to be a lot more demand for more housing in the Tree Streets area. And so there's just a lot of things kind of pointing for this to get done. Preston, do you have an ETA of when you think you might fill this position?
We are still working on it. We've made a couple of offers, and those offers have not worked out. This is a very difficult hiring time right now, and I just say I am quoting the HR director. This is not just in the Development Services Department. This is citywide, and it's incredibly difficult even in the private sector. But for a lot of these professional positions like the planners, it's just tough right now. And so we're working closely with our HR director, really beginning to reach further out than we have previously in terms of, kind of how far our tentacles are willing to go out and grab folks. And so it's all I can tell you is that it is one of the most important items on my desk right now. And it was unfortunate that we had a couple not work out, but we're still plugging along.
Okay. And do you so when people ask me about this, so when you get the new planner on, would this be their first project, or would this be something that the new planner would work on?
I'd want to sit down with them and because every planner is different. And so, we're going to have a conversation about policy initiatives, priorities. So it's not just about the planner and them as an individual, but about where we are as a department at that time. I want to be able to swing back with you all and talk to you all about prioritizing some of your desires for policy conversations and other initiatives. So I don't want to just do it blindly or just say here on the call on March 9th that that's going to be the very first policy initiative we jump into, because in 60 days from now, 30 days from now, we could have something pop up. So let's have that conversation again. And what I'd like to do is to be able to bring you all 3 to 5 policy initiatives, and then ask you all to prioritize those into a top 3. And then when I get a prioritization from you all as a body, then we will go and run.
Thank you, Preston.
Say we do it like The Voice, where we face backwards and then we did something when we like it.
I like that. Or we could all come out, dressed in, is that what's the one where they're all in costumes and they're singing?
I'm not sure.
A masked, whatever.
Here.
Yeah.
You all watch entirely too much reality TV.
The highlights.
Okay. Lawrence, I see y'all came back. Have you got those maps to share with us yet?
Yes, let me share my screen. Let's see. Can y'all see the screen now? Wait, let me hit the share button. You see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the West Walnut corridor through here. Sheet 4 will show the connection with West Walnut University Parkway. What we're doing is putting a median across University Parkway, so there's only a right in, right out movement. So there wouldn't be any crossing. I think the question was there going to be a refuge here? If we go down to the furthest south in the plan set, it stops at West Maple Street. There's a planned intersection down here at Pine Street that they're going to do. And we'll have a signalized intersection there. So the crossing would be down there, or you would just go up to the University Parkway and State of Franklin intersection to cross.
Okay.
So does that kind of answer the question that was about the refuge?
It does. I was out of date on that. Thank you.
So the crosswalks will go away here.
Yeah.
Is that the same for bicyclists?
Yes, there would be a median there. So yeah, you would continue up to, like I said, State of Franklin, or you could cross down at Pine Street.
Okay.
We really believe students are going to walk an extra block to get to that crosswalk.
Might have to bump over a median or jump over it.
Not happening.
Yeah, do we know how tall the median's gonna be? Is that in the plan?
I'd say it's a 6-inch detached curb, concrete.
Just kind of enough to scratch the rims on my wife's car.
Yeah.
All right, I think the other question dealt with, do you know what order they're gonna do these projects potentially?
And I don't know. Brandon and I were talking, we were thinking they were gonna go from west to east, but I don't know if that's been determined. I think the bid would be a bid for one contractor to build the whole project. So.
And
The city is going to build the Cherokee Street extension, as well as do the Pine Street signals. I don't think there's any signals planned for Cherokee Street at State of Franklin for right now. I think that's a future project.
So the Cherokee Street extension be going through here.
Yeah, through the harmonized property.
So we're currently working on putting that in for a design, and then I think we're gonna increase we'll have an extra lane in between, what is this? University Parkway on State of Franklin, on the south side of State of Franklin between University Parkway and Watauga.
And Watauga, right.
I think it starts off with 5 lanes and then it narrows down to 4 and then comes back to 5. We'll have 1 lane on the south here. And this Cherokee will connect into it. Like I said, it might be a future signal there at Cherokee, but for now, I don't think there are plans for a signal.
And just for clarification, so the Cherokee extension is planned as part of the current process. It's not an after this is done. It's kind of during this. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the Public Works Department would build this section of the Cherokee Street extension, and we would have a contractor build. These are the contract plans right here. Right now, the contract plans aren't showing the Cherokee Street extension. I think Phil had that in mind, was for the Public Works Department to build this part of the Cherokee extension.
Okay, thank you.
Or at least consider it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And would that include the park as well around Cherokee?
I don't know the status of that.
Okay.
Yeah, Phil has been working on that. I know there's going to be some detention basins in there, but I don't know what the plans are exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I think a lot of the quote unquote park improvements are going to be stormwater improvements, very much like what you see with Founders Park.
Right.
Commissioner Whitfield, that's how I understand it as well, that road extension is in conjunction with some stormwater improvements in that area.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that's going to be, I guess I haven't heard confirmed that it's going to be a stormwater improvement like Founders and not like just a basin. But that might be too much in the weeds right now.
Well, how about this? We'll be glad to, this has been a great conversation. I learned that, y'all were wanting a little bit more information, a little bit more detail, and I'm happy to go and get it. And I'll be glad to shoot you out an email so that you're not waiting until the next meeting, and shoot you out an email and see if we can get something back to you.
That's great. Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest projects cities undertaking right now. So I don't know about everybody else. I'm getting a lot of questions about it.
Sure.
I'm here.
Yeah, it's a flashpoint for sure, Preston. I don't think it's normally this granular, but on this one, I think it's something that we're all going to be approached with. The more you can arm us with information that the city is ready to share, I think it would help. I think it would help all of us. So really appreciate your efforts there.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and if the city is willing to share the plans also, we've got a lot of detailed questions that probably couldn't be answered without actually looking at a plan.
Sure. Yeah. I'll respond to that just kind of like I do with anybody else in any other site plans or any other civil plans. The plans are all public record. They are that. However, plans are also copyrighted. And so we have to get approval from the designer before we can release the plans. But one thing, the other is that we oftentimes try not to just toss plans out into the world because they can easily be misread. And so that's what our department does, or I should say both engineering and the planning department, help folks understand exactly what they're seeing. So when it comes down to, wanting to see the plans and review them at a high degree of detail, we always encourage anybody to come down and we can pull out the whole set and go over them with anybody. But I'll find out what version can be put out there for public consumption that might have more detail than just the master plan that was done.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, is there additional discussion or questions on the Walnut Street project or the Tree Street request? All right, then let's move on to the fourth discussion item, which was a request to receive additional information on the state right-of-way legislation.
Sure. First of all, I didn't thank you, Brandon and Lawrence, very much for doing all that. Honestly, I could dive into this, but I gave you all a pretty good chunk of information there. There was an email from Sam Edwards, who's a really well-respected land use attorney in the state of Tennessee, and actually provides a lot of land use legal advice to us. Get that, kind of speaking of fine grained, it gets a little more fine grained than even just our city attorney. And then there was also, you saw there the excerpt from the General Assembly. So this is Senate Bill 1604, House Bill 0366. I can go through this, or if you've already read it and have questions, we can do it that way, whatever your preference.
25 words or less, the essence of the issue.
Sure. The essence of the issue is that this is a bill being brought forward by really by the surveyors, or it was introduced at the urging of the Surveyors Association. I'm using Sam's words exactly. In short, what it does is it would prevent cities from being able to require right-of-way dedications on existing public rights-of-way. So I'm going to say that again, but I'm going to break it down a little bit. Existing public rights-of-way, that's important because we're not talking about dedication of new rights of way. So for example, you know, when you all take on a final plat and you do a right of way dedication with a final plat, that's considered a new street. This is for existing streets that may already have existing businesses or existing homes along them. And let's say that the city has a thoroughfare plan or a major, some major roadway plan. And that roadway plan shows that in 25 years, X Road, Smith Street, is going to be widened. And so the government needs to come in and ask for dedication of wider right-of-way along an existing public street. What this legislation is proposing is that the government wouldn't be able to do that the government could ask for what's called a reservation. So the difference between a reservation and a dedication is a reservation is where a resident simply reserves or kind of promises that they will give up the right-of-way when the time comes. A dedication is different than a reservation in that the property owner goes ahead and actually dedicates the additional right-of-way legally by plat. Does that make sense? Do I need to say that again about the difference between a dedication and a reservation? Reservation, they're saying, I promise I'm going to do this. The dedication says, I'm doing it now. And so this bill says that the government would not be able to require a dedication, but only get a reservation. And that if at the time that the government needed the land for the street, that all those property owners must be, I want to use the right word, and Brett may laugh.
Compensated?
Yeah, well, no, I know it was compensated. I was trying to think of the word just compensation. Didn't know if it got into specificity. The property is entitled to just compensation as required by law. The other is that because this would be a reservation and not a dedication, if, again, going back to, let's say there was a thoroughfare plan or some roadway plan, and the government or the city or the county, whomever, decided that that was not going to be where the road went, that instead the road is going to be widened over here, we've backed off of this one. And so where they've backed off, the right-of-way reservation shrinks back down. Does that make sense? So temporarily, the property owner would reserve it. Maybe the road comes through, maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then that reservation goes away. So that's some thick stuff. It's hard to do in a short little blurb there, but that's kind of the shortest version I can give. It looks like, the other thing that's interesting about this is that the bill also specifies, and I'm reading directly from this General Assembly screenshot, that a real estate licensee has no duty to inform any party during a real estate transaction concerning the right-of-way reservation or any rights attached to it. So that was an interesting little excerpt, or that was an interesting little addition that a realtor would not be obligated to share this information with anyone. So that's the long and short of it. As Sam mentioned at the end of his email, he said, I would suspect that this one is right for home builders, realtors, and possibly the Farm Bureau to join in on this. Not confirmed, he said, by any of those. Time is always on the side of government with these types of bills, as more urgent matters typically take the prime positions. This one may get sent to committee, and who knows what will happen there. But Sam does recommend that local officials let the General Assembly know that this could be damaging to local government's ability to gain additional right-of-way.
Is there also an economic angle that the value of the right-of-way today is less than what it might be in the future?
Sam didn't get into that, and I've not read that anywhere else. I wonder from Brett, is there, regardless of time, when just compensation is required, there has to be an appraisal done at that time, right? And so it's going to be kind of regardless of market forces, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a couple of different sections of the titles that you can go under for this. Also kind of depends on what kind of government agency it is. But no matter what, whenever there's a taking of any kind, you're going to have an appraisal, and you're going to have to pay in that fair market value into the court first and foremost. And then you can fight over the value if you don't come to an agreement and the landowner wants to object. I guess my question is, when would this come before the planning commission? So it would only be in the situation of a subdivision that's along an existing public right-of-way, and the city as a part of that site plan. So for instance, Cedar Village over there on Rome Street, that's along Rome Street. And so the city as a part of that asked for additional right-of-way along Rome Street. And I'm just using that as a hypothetical, but is that kind of the situation we're talking about?
Yes.
Because it's not going to impact any subdivision regulations regarding a new right-of-way.
No. It only applies along existing rights of way, and you are correct that this may or may not involve the planning commission. It would involve the planning commission if there was a subdivision that did not involve new streets, but yet there was a subdivision along an existing right-of-way. That happens often. And let's say that the major thoroughfare plan identified an upgrade to a road that we know is forthcoming, and we don't have the adequate right-of-way. That typically we would then ask for the dedication. This is saying that we would not be able to ask for the dedication, that we would only be able to get a reservation. And I think that, you know, again, Bob, I don't know, and I realize you've got something else to add, Brett. I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I think, and I'm making a presumption here, I realize, but I think it's less about being able to kind of play with market value and more about property owners getting frustrated about having to dedicate land and then a future road not ever getting built. That's a leap. And I mean, that's Preston saying that, but that's what I've seen happen not only here, but back in my previous community, where dedications were made, pretty large dedications were made, you know, big chunks of people's front yards. And then the road doesn't ever get built because funding gets moved around. And so then they'll say, well, I'd kind of like to have that back. And the government says, nah, you know, we're going to hold on to that.
When does that occur without it being a taking and there being compensation paid under the takings procedures under state statute, though? Because I'm not aware of it. I mean, like, for instance, we've had recent ones, you know, involving, well, and maybe they were just mostly state highway projects. But I guess I'm just confused on when, does that happen often?
Well, keep in mind that if something was administrative, if it was administrative, then you're right, there would need to be just compensation. If it was done as part of a plat approval, where somebody's trying to seek plat approval for a subdivision approval, then that's a reasonable exaction to put on them to dedicate that additional right.
Right.
Does the difference make sense?
Yeah, I guess I just don't see a scenario outside of a subdivision where you wouldn't have to pay compensation for that.
No, I don't see one either. And so that's why I was suggesting that I think it's less of a financial issue and more of I don't want to commit to the dedication until you, the government, are ready to commit to me.
Yeah.
That's a guess, but that's a best guess based on experience.
But somebody thinks this.
I don't know. I haven't read the bill, so it seems like it's not a real, I don't know. It kind of seems like a bill to nowhere to me, but maybe that's a lot of things.
Won't be the first one.
Hey, Preston, quickly, and I don't want to take up everyone's time here, but can you just give me a scenario where this bill, if it got passed, how it may adversely affect the city?
Well, it could.
And I ask that because, as a body, should this something that we should discuss, and should we make a recommendation to city council that they, push something to our local representatives? I think they'd want us to kind of work through that and talk about it before we give a recommendation to them. So I'm just asking you what your impression is, how this might adversely affect us.
Yeah, I think that the negative impact on the local government is just the inability to confirm dedications. It's really hard to move forward with your capital improvement planning and your capital improvement budgets when you can't confirm right-of-way acquisitions, right-of-way dedications and other acquisitions. So it just simply makes it very difficult. The other is the loss of the right-of-way if funding gets changed or if priorities change. As Brett said, this is it's a strangely worded bill. It's despite the detail in those 4 bullets, it's still very vague. So I think there are still a lot of unknowns, but just like with West Walnut Street, I'll be happy to kind of dig into this a little bit further for your next meeting and see if now it is highly likely, as Sam said, as Bob was joking about, a lot of these bills will kind of go into committee and they disappear forever. So if it looks like it's headed in that direction, then I can find out, and then there's really no need to act on it. But if this thing starts to have some traction behind it, then absolutely. So let me find out a little bit more information on it. I can shoot you an email on that, see what kind of traction this thing's gaining. And then I would also want Public Works to, they would absolutely need to chime in on this.
Yeah, I guess that's my next question is, Chairwoman Wild, maybe you can better decide this, but is that something that, I don't know. I don't know if this is something that should even come from us, or if this is something that you think would be better handled by Public Works and Phil reaching out to City Council.
Well, it's, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to overstep you there, Chairwoman Wild. I just, the information, Phil's going to advise the city manager, just like I advise the city manager. We have weekly operations meetings, myself and the Public Works Director and Water and Sewer Director, where we update the city manager on a number of matters, many of which include these types of things and our agendas and decisions you all have made. So he is always up to date. Whether or not the city manager then believes that there needs to be a formal recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Commission, I'll leave that up to him. But I think first I need to just dig into it a little bit more and see what kind of traction this thing's getting.
I'll say one thing. The one kind of concerning thing I saw just reading through the bill real quick, it's really the setbacks from the existing right-of-ways. It basically says that that reservation does not affect setbacks from existing right-of-ways. And that's a big issue when you go to expand a road, because that's where you end up in these situations like along these big highways where you've got a residence that's like right up on the road, it seems like. And so that would be the one thing off the top, just reading through it, that would be kind of concerning to me from a land use perspective. So, and I'll be quiet.
No, that was very helpful. And it looked like, Whitney, you were about to add.
Yeah, I would say that the non-disclosure part, it's not necessarily a city issue, but it's a citizen issue. Because for the most part, when people buy land, this might be the first encounter that they have with a land ownership process or the development process, and it's overwhelming. So, our department, what we try to do with that is to kind of take some of that away. And so if they've bought something and they don't realize there's a reservation with it, that can feel disenfranchising.
Good point.
Thank you.
All right. Is there additional discussion? No, I really do appreciate the information and the update on that. And thank you, Benjamin, for asking about some of these discussion items. I think it was great information for all of us.
I think all of this was great. And I'm happy to, we are happy to do this every meeting. This was a good, because we haven't done this to this degree really in the past, or at least since I've been here. And so it was a good test for me too, that I realized maybe when you make a request on an item, let me know whether or not you want 100,000 foot or whether or not you want grass blade. And I mean, seriously, I'll be glad to, because that's easy for me to be able to do that. Just let me know. I just need 100,000 foot on this, or I want to get into the weeds with you just a hair. Let me know.
Preston, you blew the 25 words or less.
I do that every time. Do that every time.
All right. Well, I think we've had some great discussion tonight, and I think it piggybacks off of the discussion we had the other night at the retreat too. So I'm very grateful for everyone. Is there any other discussion that we need to have this evening?
We adjourn.
Well,
all right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Wait, no.
No, sorry.
I was wanting to make sure Will was still on. So this is really, I just want to say this out loud for the minutes. So Nicole, if you'll just, staff, while during the meeting because we're all here in City Hall, and so we ran back to each other's offices to confirm a couple of things. The Chase Drive control strip, where you granted access across that control strip, even though the right-of-way request has been shown on that plan, that was not a plat. And I know you all know that you did not approve a plat. You approved access across the control strip. I verified with Mr. Ryder after that item that the applicant was well aware of the fact that it was not a plat dedicating the right of way, and that this was just access across the control strip. And he confirmed that yes, the applicant was well aware of that, and that the intention is to build the street to public standards. It may remain within or it may remain on private property with an easement for a certain amount of time, but that if and when it is dedicated by plat, then it would have been built to public standards. So all of that has been confirmed on the plan, and would be stamped as such when the plan comes through for administrative approval. So that was not a right-of-way dedication, but the right-of-way is being provided and promised on the plan.
Yeah, it'd come back to you all once they dedicate it to the public, but one way or another, we get the street, even if it remains private, built to public standard. And I don't see any reason why they would want to continue to maintain that. So it'll likely come back to you all for dedication.
Gotcha. Thank you, Will, for doing all that.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else, Preston, or can somebody second Commissioner Cooper's motion to adjourn?
I will hush now.
All right. We have a motion and a second on the table. Is there anybody who objects to adjournment? 7:47. We're done, guys. See you next.
See ya.
Chairwoman Wild.
No.